welcome to Stewardship Stories, a podcast about people who take care of land. This is the second part of my interview with Sarah Charlop-Powers, a friend of mine from the Yale School of Forestry. In this part of the interview, we talked about her work on planning for stewardship of a greenway in the South Bronx. We did this interview in an open classroom at the School of Forestry, and so in the background you can hear construction as well as people in the hallway.
I am currently working for Jonathan Rose Companies on a project in the South Bronx, creating a new maintenance and stewardship entity that will be sort of a spin-off of 12 stakeholder groups that include mostly not-for-profits but also include several government agencies. And the responsibility of the new organization will be to complete future phases of construction and to be responsible for all stewardship and programming of a greenway that's getting built that will run parallel to the Bronx River Greenway. This greenway, the South Bronx Greenway, starts in Hunts Point and runs through the south and southeast Bronx and then connects through a yet-to-be-built connection to Randall's Island and then to Manhattan. Wow. And it's really exciting, and I mention that first because I feel that in many ways it's sort of a culmination of the work that I did at Scenic Hudson and the things that I focused on academically here at Yale and my past before having a professional career. So the project that I'm working on with them is really a collaboration of many different efforts that have been made in the South Bronx. Two primary organizations are the Point CDC, which is a community development corporation and also an arts institute in Hunts Point. And the other organization is Sustainable South Bronx, which was founded by Majora Carter, who went on to win the MacArthur Genius Award. And both of those organizations, in conjunction with local government, work to build, and the City Parks Department, to build these two really spectacular parks on former industrial lands in Hunts Point. And then a grant was secured to basically do a visioning for open space generally in the area, and a couple of things came out of that. One is a broad neighborhood-wide tree planting initiative, and the other is a plan to put in a greenway which will basically connect these two parks and then make those broader connections that I described to you. And at this point, there is a lot of momentum for construction, but a lot of confusion about maintenance and stewardship. And there was two really interesting, you would actually probably really enjoy them, articles in the New York Post this summer about the City Parks Department and how they're sort of failing as land managers. And a law was passed in New York City that makes it illegal to spend construction money, park construction money, on anything other than construction. So there's a lot of funds available to build new parks and not a lot of money to do anything with them once they're built. And the model that's been created is that there's a lot of public-private partnerships, and parks like Central Park or Prospect Park have these friends groups or conservancies that bolster their revenues, but I mean huge amount. I think the average in New York City is $4,000 per acre annually, and Central Park is over $30,000 per acre with the use of outside funds. And so for a place like Hunts Point, there's a lot of confusion because there's no economic base to draw on, really. There's not corporate sponsorship opportunities or wealthy donors who live in the neighborhood who use the site. It's one of the, until recently, it was the poorest congressional district in the entire United States, this Southeast Bronx region. So it's tricky, it's confusing, and it's really letting me tap into a lot of my interests and also a lot of bigger questions about equity and where you get money from. And our job will be to figure out how to sort of build on what everybody's done to date and the different funding mechanisms that they've used, and figure out how to make this autonomous new organization that will take over all of those roles and serve as a sort of cohesive entity that provides those services. Report back in 8 months, I'll tell you how we're doing.
Yeah, that sounds like a big project.
Yeah, it is.
Can you talk just a little more about the landscape and the people that would be using this greenway?
I would say already there's a real diversity of users. I mean, certainly youth is a huge factor in Hunts Point. There's very few parks in the neighborhood, and I guess it's tied, but it has the highest asthma rates in New York City. It's like 5 times above the city average. So there's a lot of, and obesity is a big problem. So sort of public health and youth health will be a really big issue. But I think really there's the potential for sort of every demographic in the community to benefit. There's the potential for the economy to be boosted, for vendors to have, greater flow of customers because of visitation to the park. I think obviously fitness overall and family bonding and stuff, but the park that exists, well, the 2 parks that exist now have been very well used for a real variety of things. So there's a natural amphitheater in one of the parks, and they have concerts and dance performances. So it's really, when you go to the parks, especially in the summer, there's like old guys playing checkers, there's people hanging out, there's people eating hot dogs. It's just it's really become like the yard of the community, which is really great. But it's still a very, very poor neighborhood, and there's definitely an interest in earned income opportunities and sort of leveraging economic possibilities through the creation of the parks and the greenway.
Can you paint me kind of a picture of your hopes for the greenway?
Sure. I want it to be amazing. I really want to see sort of the potential of that neighborhood further enhanced. There's so much creativity and entrepreneurship happening there, and so much potential that's already been tapped into, and I just get tingled every time I think about it all sort of coming together. There's, Hunts Point is a peninsula, so it's surrounded by water on 3 sides and by a major highway and subway tracks on the land side, and I just love the image of people biking and walking and riding boats and stuff, and having that whole waterfront become this open public resource as opposed to what it is now, which is like a closed industrial zone. I mean, the groups that are already functioning are some of the most inspiring groups that I've ever encountered. And so to be able to work with them and to sort of build on the successes that they've had is really an honor.
You said before how working on this is kind of the culmination of everything in your life. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more?
So, as I mentioned, I grew up in the Bronx, and I left thinking I would never come back. And I left when I was 17. I turned 30 this year, and I went back for the first time, and now I'm working there, and I feel like there's something very cathartic on a very personal level about being sort of back where I came from, and I feel like my experiences growing up there have so influenced everything else that I've done that I'm really able to draw these connections sort of internally between how my initial experiences there as a child informed all these other things, and now how I'm getting to take the skills that I learned in those different experiences and stuff and bring them back. Sort of tying all those elements together into a community is, I don't know, I feel like it's like the greatest thing you could get to work on. It's so fun.
Construction of the South Bronx Greenway has already begun. You can see the plans for the Greenway at the Sustainable South Bronx website. You can find their website and more about the project at stewardshipstories.com.